I was watching TV in the family room when my son-in-law walked in, grabbed the remote, and shut it off like he was switching off my existence. "Go to your room, old woman," he said. "This living room is mine now." My daughter stood behind him and lowered her eyes. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply stood up, took my keys, and left without a word. And the next day, a man in a crisp suit appeared at my front door and rang the bell. "Welcome to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I would truly appreciate it if you subscribed and liked the video." Now let's jump back into the story, because if you stay until the end, you'll understand exactly why I walked out that door so calmly. That evening, the click of the remote felt louder than the television ever had. One second the news was murmuring softly, the next the screen went black, and the silence landed in the room like a slammed file drawer. I was sitting in my green velvet armchair, the one I bought with my first Social Security check after my husband passed away 15 years ago. It wasn't just a chair to me. It was proof that I could still provide for myself, even after grief had taken half my world away. A mug of coffee cooled on the end table. In the kitchen, the scent of peach cobbler lingered, warm, sweet, almost comforting. That was my routine. Quiet TV, a little dessert, and a few minutes where my joints eased and I could breathe without serving anyone. Then the front door banged open like a storm had kicked it. I didn't turn my head. I knew that heavy step. Derek never entered like a guest. He entered like a landlord inspecting a property. Behind him, my daughter Lena followed with shopping bags, shoulders curved forward, eyes fixed on the floor. She looked like someone who had already apologized 100 times in her head just for existing. Derek strolled in front of the TV, blocking my view on purpose. He made that little sound he always made when he saw me resting, a snort full of contempt, as if my quiet time was an insult to him. Then he lifted the remote and pressed the power button. The screen went dark. "To your room," he barked. "I'm putting the game on. This family room is mine now. Mine." The word hung there bold and ugly. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I simply looked past him toward Lena. She stood in the kitchen doorway gripping the shopping bag so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Our eyes met. I waited, just for one sentence, the smallest act of protection. "Don't speak to my mother like that." Or even, "Derek, stop." But Lena's gaze dropped. She adjusted one of the bags like the handle suddenly mattered more than my dignity. That quiet gesture hit harder than Derek's shouting. His disrespect was loud. Her betrayal was silent. And in that moment something cold and clear moved through me. Not anger, not embarrassment, not even sadness. Clarity. The kind that settles in your bones when you finally accept a truth you've been avoiding. 35 years working at the county recorder's office taught me one lesson better than any sermon ever could. People can lie with words all day, but paper doesn't lie. I rose slowly. My knees clicked as I stood, a dry sound that filled the room because Derek had turned everything else off. For a second, that click felt like a stamp on a document, official and final. Derek was already dropping onto my couch like he belonged there, loosening his shirt collar, reaching for a soda as if the whole house existed to refresh him. In his mind, I wasn't a person. I was a piece of furniture that cooked. Lena was in the kitchen, clattering dishes with that frantic energy of someone trying to keep peace by staying busy. Not defending me. Not defending herself. Just maintaining the illusion that if she moved fast enough, the tension wouldn't swallow her whole. I walked past the family room without another glance and went into my bedroom. Not to hide. Not to cry. Not to go to my room like a punished child. I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser and pulled out a stiff leather pouch where I kept important papers. I took out my keys and a blue folder held together with an old elastic band. My fingers slid over documents I knew like I knew my own name. A deed. A bill of sale. Old but valid. Updated records. Owner Celeste M. Everson. The paper edges were yellowed with age, but its authority was iron. In the mirror, I saw a short-haired gray woman with glasses on a chain, linen trousers, and a navy blouse. I looked like the harmless grandmother who bakes cobbler and watches the evening news. People underestimate that look. They think it means softness. They think it means surrender. That's the trick, you see. As long as Grandma keeps feeding the wolves feel like kings. But the moment Grandma closes the pot lid, the wolves remember they have no crown. I closed the folder, held it against my chest for one steadying breath, and returned to the hallway. Derek had turned on the sports channel and blasted the volume as if noise could establish ownership. Lena moved around the kitchen like a shadow, avoiding eye contact. I walked to the front door. My heel clicked once on the hardwood. Derek glanced over his shoulder and smirked, lifting his soda can like a toast. "Taking a stroll, Celeste?" he sneered. "Don't get lost. At your age." I didn't answer. I turned the deadbolt slowly. Then I paused for 1 second and looked around what he called his house. The framed print of the Savannah riverfront, the rug I vacuumed every Saturday, the kitchen I cleaned, the couch Derek sprawled on, my daughter's hunched silhouette in the doorway. I reached into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around the key ring. Cold metal. Solid. Real. I opened the door, stepped outside, and closed it gently, quietly, firmly, like placing a period at the end of a sentence. The air outside was crisp, clean, and sharp enough to wake a person up. I locked the gate from the outside, walked to the avenue, and hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The Grand Hyatt downtown," I said. And as the car pulled away, my hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from power. The cab smelled faintly of pine air freshener and old upholstery. The city lights slid across the windows like moving water. I watched them without blinking, not because I was lost in thought, but because my mind had become strangely quiet. When you spend years swallowing words, you forget what calm feels like. That night, calm felt like a door finally closing behind me. My phone was in my hand before we reached the hotel. I scrolled to a number I hadn't dialed in a long time, but I knew it would still work. Some people change addresses, change jobs, change marriages. Attorneys like Andrew V. Sterling didn't change. They stayed planted in the same spot like courthouse pillars. It rang once. "Celeste," he answered, surprised. "It's nearly 9. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. "But I need your help." There was a pause, the kind that tells you the person on the other end is now fully awake. "What happened?" "I need to remove 2 people from my home," I said evenly. "Legally." "You mean Derek and Lena?" he asked carefully. "Yes." Another pause. He didn't ask why right away. He knew me. He knew I didn't call to vent. I called to act. "All right," he said. "Tell me the facts." He shut off the television in my family room and told me to go to my room. I said. He said the living room is his now. And my daughter stood there and said nothing. Andrew exhaled slowly. "That's emotional abuse," he said. "But you don't need sympathy. You need procedure." "Exactly," I replied. "Do they have a lease?" he asked. "No," I said. "They moved in 4 years ago. Supposedly temporarily. No written agreement. No rent. I covered utilities. I covered repairs. I covered groceries half the time. Derek used my cable. My internet. Everything. And the title is in your name only?" he asked. "Yes," I said, staring at the moving streetlights. "Sole owner." "All right," he said. "Then we serve a notice to quit. Termination of permission to occupy. Depending on the county, it's usually 30 days. We can do it cleanly." "Do it," I said. He hesitated only briefly. "Celeste, are you safe tonight?" "I left," I said. "I'm going to a hotel." "Good," he replied, and his voice sharpened into professional mode. "I'll draft the notice tonight. In the morning, I'll send my junior associate to serve it at your address. He's quiet, professional, and he doesn't get drawn into arguments." "Roman," I said, remembering the name. "Yes, Roman P. Cruz," Andrew confirmed. "He's crisp, controlled, and he does the job without drama." "I want one thing included," I said. "What's that?" he asked. "A warning," I replied. "Not a threat, just reality. That after the notice, any continued occupancy becomes holdover, and fair market rent can be claimed. And I want back rent calculated from the date of notice until departure." Andrew gave a low hum of approval. "Understood," he said. "You're determined." "I'm wounded," I replied. "And a wounded woman who knows her rights is dangerous." He chuckled once, not amused but impressed. "Be at my office at 8, he said. "We'll sign. Then Roman serves. After that, do not engage with them directly. No shouting. No arguing. Only facts." That's exactly what I planned, I said. The cab slowed to a stop outside the Grand Hyatt. A doorman opened my door with more respect than Derek had shown me in years. May I help you with your luggage, ma'am? He asked. I only have my purse, I said, stepping out, and the dignity I just picked up again. The hotel lobby smelled like polished marble and quiet wealth. Soft music played somewhere above, and nobody looked at me like I was in the way. That alone felt strange. The receptionist smiled and spoke gently, as if I mattered. Upstairs, my room was clean and still. Lavender soap, crisp sheets, a heavy curtain that blocked the world when I wanted it blocked. Across from the bed, a large TV waited like a promise. I turned it on. I set the volume exactly how I liked it. No one came in to shut it off. I ordered soup and a glass of Cabernet. I ate slowly, not because I was starving, but because every bite felt like a small declaration. I exist. I take up space. I am allowed to be comfortable. When I finished, I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about what was happening back at my house. I knew their routine as if I had written it. Derek slept late, then wandered into the kitchen acting as if the world owed him breakfast. Lena moved around him like a satellite, adjusting his moods, smoothing his anger, anticipating his complaints. In their minds, I would return by morning, apologetic, quiet, grateful. In their minds, I would accept my place again. But tomorrow morning, the intercom would buzz with a different sound. Not family. Law. I slept deeply, the way you sleep when you stop arguing with reality. At sunrise, I showered, put on the same clothes, but my posture felt different. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw the same face, the same gray hair, the same glasses on a chain. But the eyes were different. They were not pleading anymore. They were settled. At Andrew's office, I sat across from him as he slid documents toward me. Notice to quit. Termination of gratuitous occupancy. Service instructions. Timeline. Consequences. Every line was clean and direct. Andrew pointed with his pen. Here and here. Date this. Initial this paragraph. This ensures they cannot claim confusion. I signed. Each stroke of my pen felt like a final judgment. Roman appeared in the doorway, tall, neat, leather briefcase, crisp suit. He looked like a man built out of order. Roman will serve the notice, Andrew said. He'll also photograph the service and note the time. If Derek becomes aggressive, Roman won't argue. He'll simply document. Good, I said. Andrew looked at me over his glasses. Where will you be today? I'll wait here, I said calmly. I don't want to be tempted to answer calls emotionally. I want to stay in the place where decisions are made with paper. He nodded once. Smart. I sat in the reception area. The coffee machine gave off a sweet smell, but I didn't pour any. My hands were steady. The clock on the wall made a soft, patient sound. Tick-tock. In my family room, the king was about to learn what ownership actually meant. At 9:30, my phone vibrated. Lena. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mama, she cried. Her voice was sharp with panic. In the background, I heard Derek yelling loud, furious, dramatic. There's a man at the door. He has papers. Derek is screaming. What is going on? Where are you? I held the phone slightly away from my ear. Roman is serving a notice, I said calmly. Read it. Mama, it says eviction. She whispered as if the word itself could burn her tongue. 30 days. Are you serious? Have you lost your mind? I could hear Derek shouting something like, Give me that. Who does she think she is? My voice stayed even. Lena, for the first time in years, I am completely sane. She choked on a breath. But why would you do this? Because yesterday your husband told me to go to my room like I was a child, I said. And you stood there and helped him by doing nothing. Silence on the line except Derek in the distance. Then Lena's voice dropped. He didn't mean it like that. He meant it exactly like that, I replied. Now read the notice. Follow the instructions. The less noise you make, the easier this will be. Mama, she began again, but I ended the call. The silence that followed was clean. I sat back in the chair and looked at the wall clock. Tick-tock. Andrew stepped out briefly and raised an eyebrow. Daughter. I nodded. The show opened on schedule. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text. From Derek. Come home. We need to talk. Another text followed. You can't do this. We have rights. I read them and set the phone face down like it was something dirty. Andrew walked by again. Do you want tea? I want something else, I said. He stopped. What? I want to shut off everything I pay for, I replied. Not forever. Suspend. The internet. Cable with the sports package. The landline. And the supplementary card Lena uses. Andrew's mouth twitched. That will be noticed. Yesterday was painful, I said. Today will be felt. They're different. He nodded once. We'll document it carefully. I pulled out my notebook and wrote 3 lines, simple and hard. Step 1, legal. Served. Timeline started. Step 2, financial. Turn off the taps. Step 3, silence. No fights. Only facts. My phone buzzed again. Lena. Then again. Then again. I didn't answer. Because today my silence wasn't weakness. It was control. An hour later, another vibration. A bank notification. Transaction declined. Then another. Transaction declined. I didn't need to guess what happened. I could picture Derek at a register, annoyed, waving a card like the universe was malfunctioning. Then the call came. Derek. I answered once, only once. Fix it, he barked instantly. The card isn't working. It's not broken, I said quietly. It's blocked. His breathing turned sharp. You can't do that. I can, I replied. It's my account. He started shouting, but I cut through him like paper cuts through cloth. You told me yesterday the living room is yours, I said. So today you can pay for your own kingdom. I ended the call. I sat still. And for the first time in a long time I smiled, not a sweet smile, not a grandmother smile. A small, unsentimental smile. Because the truth was finally loud enough to hear. I left Andrew's office shortly before noon, not because I had nowhere else to be, but because I finally had somewhere else to exist. The street outside was bright, ordinary, full of people rushing to lunches and meetings, unaware that a small private war had just changed direction. For years, I had arranged my days around other people's tempers. Today the day arranged itself around me. I walked 2 blocks without thinking and stopped in front of a clothing store I had passed hundreds of times without entering. The mannequins wore clean lines, neutral colors, nothing flashy. Clothing for adults who made decisions. I went in. A sales associate greeted me. Not with pity, not with forced cheer, but with calm professionalism. Her name tag said Jenna. I need a uniform, I told her. She tilted her head slightly. For work. For boundaries, I said. She nodded once like she understood perfectly, and disappeared between the racks. When she returned, she carried navy straight-leg trousers, a crisp white blouse, and a beige linen blazer. Nothing dramatic. Nothing apologetic. In the fitting room, I studied myself carefully. The clothes didn't make me look younger. They made me look clearer. My shoulders sat differently. My spine remembered it had a purpose. I paid without hesitation, folded my old cardigan into a donation bag, and walked out with the tap of sensible heels marking each step. Outside, my phone vibrated again. Lena. Then another message from Derek. Then a third. I didn't open them. Instead, I sat at a quiet cafe on the corner, ordered soup and bread, and ate like someone who wasn't waiting for permission. Halfway through, a notification slid across my screen. Internet service suspended. Cable services suspended. Supplementary card blocked. The timing was perfect. Almost immediately, my phone lit up again. This time with a bank alert. Declined. Grocery purchase $87.24. I smiled faintly and finished my soup. Minutes later, the phone rang. Derek again. I answered, calm as still water. What did you do? He demanded. The internet's dead. The TV's gone. The card isn't working. Are you trying to ruin us? No, I replied. I'm stopping. You're humiliating us, he shouted. People were watching at the store. Humiliation, I said evenly, is being told to go to your room in your own house. Today, everyone simply pays their own bills. He swore and hung up. I placed the phone face down and ordered tea. That afternoon, the hotel called. Mrs. Everson, your daughter is in the lobby, the receptionist said politely. She says it's urgent. I looked at my watch. The timing felt deliberate. Daylight conversations are always cleaner than nighttime hysterics. I'll be right down, I said. In the lobby, Lena paced between the couches like a trapped animal. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair pulled back too tightly, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me in the beige blazer, she froze. "Mama," she said. "Sit," I replied, pointing to an armchair. She obeyed automatically, hands clasped in her lap. "Why are you doing this?" she asked in a pleading voice she must have learned young. "The utilities, the cards, Derek can't work. This is ruining everything." "Everything was already ruined," I said quietly. "I simply stopped pretending it wasn't." She shook her head. "He had a bad day. You know how he gets." "He didn't mean it." "He meant it," I said. "And you helped him by staying silent." Her eyes filled with tears. "You're breaking the family." I leaned forward slightly. "Unplugged internet doesn't break a family, Lena. Screaming does. Lies do. Entitlement does." She swallowed. "Where are we supposed to go?" "You are adults," I replied. "You will rent a place. You will pay for it. That's what adults do." She whispered. "He says if we leave your house, he'll divorce me." That sentence landed cleanly between us. "If your marriage depends on my house and my money," I said gently, "then it isn't a marriage. It's a hostage situation." She flinched. We sat in silence while people passed through the lobby, unaware that a quiet line had just been crossed forever. "Tomorrow," I continued, 10 o'clock. Andrew Sterling's office. Both of you. We will speak with paper, not emotion." She nodded weakly and stood. Before leaving, she asked softly, "Will you turn the internet back on?" "No," I said. She left without another word. The next morning, the conference room was cool and bright. Andrew sat to my right, folders aligned with mathematical precision. Roman stood near the door, silent and watchful. Derek burst in first, rumpled and red-faced, confidence already cracked. Lena followed, eyes down. "I'm not here for pleasantries," Derek snapped. "We've lived there for 4 years. We have rights." "That's why we're here," I said calmly. "To discuss rights." Andrew slid documents across the table. "The property is solely owned by Mrs. Everson. There is no lease. The notice is valid." Derek scoffed. "Adverse possession." I smiled faintly. I worked with property law for 35 years. Adverse possession requires the owner to be absent, silent, and unpaid. I am none of those. His jaw tightened. "You shut off utilities," he shouted. "Utilities are not a human right," Andrew replied smoothly. "They are services. You're free to contract your own." Derek turned to Lena. "Tell them." She hesitated. I slid another folder toward her. "Read," I said. Inside were bank statements, loan defaults, margin calls, spending summaries. Her face changed as she read. Her hands shook. "There's nothing," she whispered. "It's gone." "Yes," I said. "There were no savings. Just spending. On my account." Derek jumped up. "I would have fixed it. The market." "Enough," I said. The room went still. "Terms," I continued. 30 days. No utilities reinstated. No cards restored. Any threats, and police reports will follow. Andrew stood. "This meeting is concluded." As I passed Derek, I paused. "You can press the remote control of your own life all you want," I said quietly. "It doesn't work on my house anymore." Outside, sunlight hit my face cleanly. My phone buzzed. "Lena." I answered after 3 steady breaths. "I didn't get in his car," she said softly. I walked away. "Good," I replied. "Walking is how you hear yourself think." She was silent. "Tomorrow," I added, 10 o'clock. "Again." "I'll be there," she said. I hung up and stood still for a moment. For the first time in years, nothing was pulling at me. Nothing demanding. Nothing shouting. Just space. And space, I had learned, is where a life finally starts breathing again. I didn't go back to the hotel immediately after leaving Andrew's office. I walked instead, slowly, without a destination, letting the city absorb what had just happened. For years, my body had learned to stay tense, ready to react to someone else's mood. That afternoon, the tension slowly loosened, like a knot finally untied. I stopped at a small restaurant near the riverfront and took a table by the window. The menu was simple. Soup, salad, bread. I ordered without looking at prices. When the food arrived, I ate deliberately, tasting each bite. No rushing. No apologizing for taking up time or space. My phone buzzed once. A bank notification. Supplementary cards closed. Beneficiary updated. Transfer complete. I read it twice, then locked the screen. That chapter was finished. Over the next few days, I stayed away from the house. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. Silence is powerful when used correctly. Derek sent messages at first, angry, demanding, then pleading. Lena sent longer ones, apologetic, confused, frightened. I didn't respond to any of them directly. All communication went through Roman. Paper only. Fax only. That alone changed everything. On the 5th day, Roman called. "They're packing," he said. Slowly. Arguing. "But packing." "Good," I replied. "Let them take their time. The deadline is clear." I booked a short stay at a spa outside the city for the final days of the notice period. Not to celebrate, not to escape, but to avoid the temptation of stepping back into chaos out of habit. On the morning of the 30th day, I woke without an alarm. The light through the curtains was even and calm, like a clean sheet of paper waiting for a signature. I had breakfast. I drank coffee. I left my phone face down. At 8 sharp, Roman called. "They're leaving now," he said. "Moving truck arrived. Inventory in progress. Call me if there's a problem," I replied. "There won't be," he said. "They're loud, but they're compliant." At 11, my phone vibrated again. Keys returned. Locks intact. Property vacant. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not out of relief. Out of acceptance. I didn't go home immediately. Instead, I stopped at a hardware store. Gloves. Mop. Cleaner. Paint samples. Peach, warm beige, soft ivory. I chose peach. A color that felt alive without shouting. At the house gate, my key turned easily. The door opened without resistance. Inside, the family room looked hollow. Furniture outlines marked the floor. The walls bore small scars where shelves and mounts had been torn out. The air smelled stale, heavy with leftover noise. I opened every window. A draft moved through the house, lifting curtains, carrying away the last traces of shouting and resentment. I stood still and let it pass through me too. Then I cleaned. Slowly. Deliberately. I scrubbed the floors twice. Wiped baseboards. Washed windows. I moved the framed Savannah riverfront print lower, where it felt right to me, not where someone else thought it should go. By evening, the house smelled clean and warm. Mine again. The doorbell rang softly. I already knew who it was. "Come in, Lena," I said. She stood at the threshold like a guest. No keys, no assumptions. Her shoulders were straighter. Her eyes clearer. "It's quiet," she said. "It's peaceful," I corrected gently. She nodded and sat at the table. I poured tea. We drank in silence for a few minutes. "I rented a studio," she said finally. "It's small, but it's mine. I pay for it myself." I nodded. "I filed for divorce," she added, voice steady but thin. I couldn't unsee what I saw in those papers. "That's how clarity works," I said. "It doesn't shout. It settles." She looked around the family room. "It looks different." "It's peach," I said. "Warm. A house should feel warm." She smiled faintly. "Can I come sometimes?" "As a guest. No keys." "That's exactly how it should be," I replied. We hugged briefly, 2 adults, no hierarchy, no debt. When she left, she didn't look back. A week later, neighbors came over. Tea at 4. Papers on the table. Questions about wills, accounts, boundaries. I didn't lecture. I simply explained. Ownership. Consent. Documents. How love doesn't require surrender. The house filled with quiet conversations instead of shouting. Advice instead of demands. Tea instead of tension. That night, after everyone left, I sat again in my green velvet armchair. The remote lay on the end table. Picked it up. Turned on the TV. Raised the volume 1 notch. Exactly where I liked it. No one came to turn it off. No one told me to go to my room. I closed my eyes and listened, not just to the music but to the house itself. Pipes ticking softly. Wind brushing the windows. The steady sound of a place that finally belonged to me. I understood something then, something simple and permanent. Ownership isn't just about deeds and keys. It's about choosing who speaks in your space, who sits at your table, and how loud the world is allowed to be. I turned off the TV when I was ready, not when someone else decided. The keys lay warm on the nightstand. There were no extra sets. The house was mine. And more importantly, I was home. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments where you're listening from and what part stayed with you the most. Some stories are not about revenge. They are about reclaiming your voice,